In today's video, as already mentioned on my X account, I want to talk about parents. Why, when it comes to personality disorders, those people are heavily focused on control, especially the control of their own child and the image that they portray to the outside world, while at the same time, probably actually for the first time, using this video as a platform for future videos, when it came to the subject that most people only suspect when it comes to Hollywood, computer games, magazines. Why certain world events like 2020, 2012, 9/11, 2008, the year 2000 and whatnot were actually even possible, those scenarios that the world has seen unfolding back then in real time. And why only certain people were able to see through it while most were not. And they were using certain techniques, certain tools that the majority of people have absolutely no clue about. Once again, they only see that in Hollywood, computer games, and nowhere else, because it doesn't exist, right? And it's not just those group organizations, secret organizations, governmental structures doing that type of thing, but it's also family dynamic. There are, for example, children already born in such families. So they have knowledge about certain things that the average adult absolutely doesn't understand, doesn't even believe in, laughs about, because once again, it's not real, right? So everyone who thinks like that must be crazy. And it's namely about black magic. As parents, you as a pair rent a child. You rent a young soul, providing it with possibilities and opportunities while guiding it throughout life, making sure in the end it becomes a functional, healthy, productive adult in society. Unfortunately, though, in today's time, most people are unfit to become parents. Most people lack the skill set and, very importantly, mindset, while at the same time being unable to provide healthy circumstances and healthy environments in which their own children could grow in, because they themselves were dismissed the possibility and opportunity taken away from their own early childhood by their own parents. So it's basically traumata gifted from generation to generation. And all those people never dared to basically look into themselves, because most people look for validation outside, the external validation, instead of looking inside. And I've explained in many of my videos so far why that is the case. Most people are weak, lazy, stupid, and undisciplined. And it very much hurts to go inside, to go within, and admit not having taken certain chances, not having solved certain problems, because the pain was simply too much to acknowledge. Most people run away from their problems. Most people do not want to deal with their problems. Most people want to be entertained all the time, week after week, weekend after weekend. There's a reason why the mind needs to be occupied 24/7. Because it is a very painful experience to go within, listen to your own voice, and realize that you basically have fucked up in life big time. So a big L for a lot of adults on this planet, especially what they have done in recent times. In this video though, we need to make sure and clearly distinct between parents who are simply just a little bit jealous and envious of their own children, making their life a little bit harder than necessary, and those who are plagued with personality disorders like being a sociopath, being a narcissist, being a psychopath, borderline disorder, autism, and others. This is a very important thing to do, because for those, the latter category, everything in life is about control. It's not just the control about their own children, but of their surroundings. Because image is the number one thing for these people. They need to make sure that the image that they portray to the outside world matches what they themselves hope for to see in the people, how they react, because they themselves are weak. They themselves lack knowledge. They themselves lack confidence. They are actually this small. And because they are that small, They need to control their environment. They need to control opportunities. They need to control and make sure that the people around them and their own children do not become a threat. This is a very clear distinction because these people do not function properly in the head. They see their own children as an opponent, as someone who threatens their existence. This is very important to understand. So why might, for example, adults be jealous of their own children? Let me give you a few examples. They might be jealous because their children get more attention than themselves, which is just, of course, a natural thing. There's a newborn child, the child grows over time. People want to interact with that child, not necessarily with the adult. That's a minor thing. For people who do not work in the mind properly, who have a distorted view on reality, that's a major thing. Like, how dare these people not pay attention to them? They might be jealous because the children might be more intelligent than them, wiser than them, having better opportunities and possibilities than, for example, 30 years ago. After all, technology advanced and is advancing at a rapid rate. You can do things that these people couldn't do. You could play. You interacted with, for example, the Game Boy, Nintendo, Xbox. Today we have the internet. Everything is the internet of things. You can connect with someone all across the planet in just a single second. These people couldn't do anything like that. So it might be simple envious, jealousy, because they have more possibilities. It might be way easier for these kids to make better money, to make faster money, to get to higher knowledge at a faster rate. You can use the internet, as I've just mentioned. The parents of the past basically couldn't do that when they were young adults. Sometimes parents use their children to undo their wrong past, their negative past. For example, since the child has more talent in a certain category, parents might actually abuse that. Let me give you an example which has happened many, many years ago, that many people actually have seen on TV because it was a very big thing in certain countries. For example, their daughters were very talented in dancing or in martial arts. The mothers, though, were fat, untrained, undisciplined. Didn't take the possibilities in their life because they were too weak. They were even maybe too stupid to realize something. They didn't have the situational awareness to take up an opportunity as a means to time to shine, as I've also mentioned in my videos. There's many people who, for example, when it came back to school, they were nervous, they were stuttering, they couldn't handle the pressure, knowing that they now have to do a presentation for the next 10 to 15 minutes. They have to perform in front of an audience, which in actuality absolutely didn't care what they were talking about. Yet, these people couldn't handle the pressure. These mothers also couldn't handle the pressure in early childhood, during the early teenage years. They maybe felt as a complete failure, therefore didn't achieve certain tasks, certain goals that they had for themselves. So they used their own children as a means to get those trophies, that attention, that winner atmosphere, basically. They want to do, in modern terms, you would say they would be aura forming through their own children, okay? And that was a major thing back then on TV, actually, in many different countries, because these children, in the beginning, they might have liked dancing. They might have liked and fully enjoyed it to the fullest. To do martial arts, they were behind everything that their parents said, especially the mother. Later on, though, it became very, very clear that these mothers were abusing these children, these daughters. The child lost complete interest in dancing and probably during teenage time completely abandoned that topic altogether. Because if you are all the time told that you have to perform, you have to act, you're not good enough, you have to look in that camera, you have to do that move, this was not good enough. Once again, heavy pressure on young children. So In the beginning, as I've mentioned, they might have liked it. Later on, they completely hate to even think about that experience because it wasn't love, it wasn't nurturing, it was pressure, it was all about being evil, control, a control grip, and emotional manipulation. Because if the child, for example, wasn't interested in practicing certain skills, certain dancing moves, these mothers punished them. And punishment might have looked completely different throughout time, For every child, there might be something different. Some might have been slapped in the face. Some might have not gotten food, anything to eat. Some might have been emotionally neglected for many days on end. With such young children, they of course absolutely do not understand what was going on. The same for men, so little boys. Their fathers, having lost in life tremendously, see them as an opportunity, for example, throughout sport, to get those trophies, atmosphere of winning, status, money eventually. Especially in today's time, you can make a lot of money through your children. You as a parent, you might have completely lost in life. So you can use your child, that opportunity, that fresh start, to get something going in life once again. Because they themselves, back in time, were too weak to take a stance for their life, to take a stance for their opinion. And I've mentioned that many times in my videos as well, why people are weak, because they have been early on in life crushed, not just by their parents, but also in school time, university, and the workplace. The workplace, the co-workers, those are not your friends. They will take everything what you say and use it against you, because this is in an environment where you make money, where you want to have opportunities. And this society is heavily structured that everyone is basically fighting against each other for the resources, for the attention, for the money, to be liked, to basically climb up the ladder in their job. And you do not get back time, one of the greatest resources in the universe, next to free will. So if you do not get time back and opportunities, how dare other people basically climb up that ladder at a faster rate than themselves? Because they, for example, are already working in that job, in that particular area for 2 decades. Now someone comes in with more knowledge, higher skill set, sharper mind, heavily focused, and basically makes everything possible, check marks every task, everything they have to do in such a fast rate that they of course will later on make more money and climb up that ladder way faster. So that of course makes sure that people become jealous, envious, hatred kicks in. Because people are unable to once again take a chance and say, for example, no. Take a chance and use that opportunity to shine. All focus, all attention on you. This is actually what most people want, but they cannot handle the pressure because they were too weak. This is all about weakness. People do not want to look inside and therefore all the time lose in life. They would rather get external validation, be occupied 24/7, than sit still in their own room on the weekends, week after week, for a couple of hours and really think about their own life choices. Why they are the way they are. Is there something more to achieve? Not just to money, but also in character growth, personality, money. Money should always only be treated as a side object. Money is like the top of a cake. And if you treat money in a way that you always chase the money, you think you do not have enough money, you need to chase the money and stuff like that, you will never have the money. And I've explained that many times as well already. So once again, this is the reason, one of the major reasons why humanity has so many problems. Because adults, as I've mentioned also, parents make children. Two people come together, they make children. Stupid parents make stupid children who are later on in life unable to think for themselves. So we have just covered now the little bit of jealousy. Life might be a little bit harder because they have to perform certain things. They are misused to undo their own wrongdoings in life because they are too dumb. They are not disciplined. They do not do sport. They are fat. They use their own daughter, their own son to achieve certain goals, certain trophies, certain statuses, attention. They live basically a second life through their child. And these children, of course, later on lose all joy for that particular subject. Because it is all about pressure. It's all about all the time you have to perform. All the time you have to do something. All the time the child is working on eggshells. All the time. If something is just done not correctly, there is a negative outcome. Certain children already anticipate how their parents will then react, because after all, children absorb everything they hear, everything they see, a sponge. All the information has to be absorbed like a sponge. I mean, they are helpless after all. They think, as I've also mentioned in many of my videos, that their parents know everything. It's super mom, it's super dad. They know everything. Later on in life, they quickly realize by the age of 12, 13, 14, that most parents do know shit. They don't know shit, basically. And that's one of the major reasons why they rebel against their parents, by drinking, by excessively doing certain things, sneaking out of the house, doing all kinds of nonsense. And this nonsense might be very dangerous in some circumstances. It doesn't matter. The end goal is very clear. They don't want to obey anymore. They want to live their own life. And it's rebellion. Rebellion against their own parents. Because they have realized their parents don't know shit and they're not cool. They're uncool. They're lazy. They're fat. Disgusting. The atmosphere around those parents is so heavy to breathe in, That's why, for example, when you go into a room and there are people around who dwell all the time in low frequency, you've just entered that room. Guess what? You feel like you cannot breathe anymore. You feel like you want to quickly actually leave because the energy is so sticky. And I've also explained it in videos. Misery loves company after all. This is very, very sticky. Jealous people, frustrated people, angry parents whose own life is falling apart, their marriage is falling apart. They hate life, basically. And their choices taken prior in the past greatly highlight their lack of a functional perception. That's why the reality check always comes later. Because they think, as I've also mentioned, parents think like they do not have to learn anymore. Parents are adults above the age of 18. They have accepted reality the way it is, not understanding that you are a co-creator of the universe. Therefore, you create the universe while you walk through life. These people don't understand it. They have given up in life already at 18, 19, 20. That's why I've just said they accept reality. They accept that they are a loser. They have a loser mindset, which attracts losers around them. Misery loves company after all. If you are an average person, you have an average lifestyle, an average experiences, average friends, average income, average possibilities, average opportunities. Nothing is spectacular, but also nothing is bad. Average simply means normality. Okay? You are the norm, which is not bad. Today, though, most people are not the norm anymore. They are below average. They have low IQ, and that low IQ highlights greatly the decisions taken in life with horrendous outcomes in the future. And once again, time is something you do not get back. So you can only in the end pity yourself how much time you have truly, honestly wasted by, for example, believing in certain idiots in your family, by believing in certain idiots in your friend circle who all the time, speak to your friends your deepest honest desires, what you want to accomplish in life, and just look once they see that you truly honestly make hardcore moves into that direction, how they will try to slow you down, how they will try to manipulate you, to put doubt in you, to basically abandon that mindset, that vision that you have. You want to create a company and make money way quicker. Don't do this. This is very, very risky. Don't invest money. They have already lost money, the parents, for example. Don't do that. This is a very risky person. This is a doubtful person. You shouldn't be interacting with them. Why? Because that individual might have the possibility to unmask them, to expose them for who they truly are. So this is all about control, just like modern slavery, how the system is structured. It is about control. Now we come to the personality disorder, like being a sociopath, a narcissist, a psychopath. In today's video, we only talk about those three because those are three major things that heavily focus on control and portraying an image to the outside world. Everything is great. They are great. Everything is fantastic. It's absolutely far from the truth. So each of those three, you could actually make a video in itself for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. That's way too long. And this is not something that I plan to do. The goal that I want to achieve is for you to quickly see who is who and what they are doing in order for you to determine if you had to deal with such mentally ill parents in the past. So what is, for example, a sociopath? All those three, you have to understand, are that small. They have been crushed at an early age by their own parents, by their own upbringing. Something happened and they were too weak to overcome that situation. They didn't have the answers. Their parents didn't have any means to protect them for future events. Therefore, those children, for example, had to shield themselves in order to survive this traumatic event. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be alive anymore. Yet they still, decades later, are still trapped in that mindset, in that weakness, not understanding that they all the time, as I've mentioned, you have as a human in every single second the chance to change your destiny. This is something God-given. You have free will. You can sit still and think about yourself, but I've just mentioned prior, people don't do that because it's painful. So a sociopath out of those three is the dumbest of them all. A sociopath is all about control. What a shocker, that's the title of the video. A sociopath is basically an adult on the outside, an adult on the inside, a fragile child at the age of 4 that became miserable early on, didn't want to fix itself because that's a painful endurance to undergo. Therefore, all the ugliness that they witnessed themselves, and later on they became themselves ugly because they identified themselves heavily, just like the other two, narcissist and psychopath, with this traumatic event. Therefore, they shielded themselves, which means they are unable to process emotions correctly. They cannot process emotions correctly. Once again, like empathy, they don't understand that concept. If they do not get their needs met, they will explode. It doesn't matter who is around, what's happening right now, what event is going on, a birthday party, police around, whatever it is. If something doesn't happen the way they planned it to be, they will rage, they will explode, they will do a tantrum because they can't control their emotions. This is a little child trapped in an older, decaying body. So if you have parents like that, who, when you have a birthday party and they explode and later on make everything about them, even though it was a minor thing, they destroy the entire atmosphere. They destroy everything, every joy. They might even throw things around, break them apart. That's a sociopath. Another example. You meet friends at their house. The parents come home. In this scenario, one of the parents is a sociopath. They ask their own child, after having greeted each other and everyone else around, if they have cleaned the kitchen. The child denies. What might a sociopath do? Since they do not have any emotional control and emotional intelligence to begin with. They turn off the electricity. It doesn't matter who's around. It doesn't matter if the event that all friends came together and the next time they might see each other is several months ahead. Birthday party, it doesn't matter. They turn everything off. They throw things around. They do a tantrum. Another example. It's 3 a.m. nighttime. They didn't get the answers that they wanted to hear. They might call you, not just one time. They might call you 50 times. You do not take up the phone. Doesn't matter. They will call and call and call and call. If they wake up anyone else around, doesn't matter. Because they can't control themselves. They have no emotional intelligence. Their emotions completely dictate the entire scenario right now. And when you pick up the phone, guess what? They are exploding. They are raging. They are spiteful beyond comprehension what they will be saying. Because they didn't get their needs met. They didn't get the information that they wanted. It's again, doesn't matter who it is, man or woman, in their 30s, 40s, 50s. They do a tantrum you can't imagine. Sociopath. All about control. Control about everything, every decision, for example, that a child is undergoing. Just like narcissists and psychopaths, they want to control the finances. They want to control what the child is thinking. They want to control what the child is doing. They want to control with whom the kid is later on having a love relationship with. They want to control everything. Because they are themselves that little and they fear all the time to be unmasked, to be exposed by people, for example, who all the time walk in truth, who speak the truth, who mean what they say and say what they mean. This is an important thing to understand. That is an aspect that holds them accountable on those three topics: sociopath, narcissism, psychopath. All three are that small. All three are all about control. What, for example, is a narcissist? Narcissism is all about feeling inside all the time inferior to the outside world, therefore they need control like the sociopath. They are a little bit more intelligent than the sociopath because they can control their emotions. They are all about mimicry. They also cannot understand empathy, the concept of emotion in itself. But they can mimic the environment. They see that people are crying. They don't understand why they are crying. They cannot make an emotional connection. But they are able to mimic what they see. They are all about emotional guilt tripping. Mostly their children. They want to make the child feel inferior. Children, for example, might fear their reaction or the absence of their reaction. Because, for example, let's just say in this scenario right now, we have a mother that is exploding, so a sociopath, and, for example, a narcissistic father might be absent. The child is anticipating that the father will be also angry. Nothing's happening. Nothing is happening throughout days and weeks until one day they explode as well. And this explosion might not be loud. This could be a very cruel, calculated thing going on, which might scare even more the child. So it's all about emotional guilt tripping throughout the years. It doesn't matter if the child later on becomes an adult. It's a power grip. These people are small. They need to control their environment. They need to control their image. Image is all to these people. Without their image portrayed in a good light, on the inside they would be dying, basically. This is so crucial for you, normal, for example, people to understand how these idiots think. And you might have as well idiots like that in your own family. Guilt tripping all the time making sure that you feel as a child sad, neglected, and avoided because you didn't follow in line. You didn't do what they wanted you to do. They made sure that you cry and later on comfort you. It's also an emotional tactic that they use. What might be examples that you may relate to? You start a new project. As I've mentioned already, those parents might not see you or that kid as their child. They see them as an opponent, as a threat to their own survival, to their own control of the environment. Because the child might exceed greatly because of more talent, more intelligence, the adult, the parent, regardless the gender. So the child wants to do a new project and wants to, for example, learn a new instrument, wants to paint something. Simply wants, for example, to have another lifestyle. I don't know what the parent, for example, was working on all life long. The child wants to do something else. Since people who are that small do not want to learn in life because it's painful, they believe, like most adults, they don't have to learn anything anymore. Right now they make money. Right now there is some sort of control through making money. The child wants to do something different, not the traditional sense. Will the child get support from that adult? Yes or no? Of course not. They will belittle that child. They will make sure that the child over time doubts its own abilities. They might even say very mean things to them. They make sure, once again, the emotional guilt tripping, that the child should be doing something else. You shouldn't have the hobbies that you are interested in. Because, for example, the example of the examples for examples. You need to help the family. You need to be there for the family. You need to be there for this parent. The parent himself, herself could do that. No. Where's the control, right? Where's the control? If the parent himself, herself is doing that, they need to make sure that there's always this emotional grip over someone to crush them, to see that, because they don't see their own child as a child. It's more like a puppet, a useful puppet with certain abilities and a skill set, knowledge proven to be useful over time. And they fear their own child might surpass them greatly. Therefore, all the time the emotional guilt tripping. You should be doing this instead of doing that. You for sure know that's not going to happen. You're not going to succeed at what you're doing here. This is not a good thing to do. That you did wrong. This you did wrong. And very importantly, they are mostly doing that in front of other people. Not even the family. Other people. Belittling them. Because they want to basically, in their mind, highlight what a good parent they are. They know so many things, but their child is stupid. child is stupid. The child doesn't want to listen to. And words alone are also a form of magic. That's manipulation. It's completely having a goal in mind that you want to accomplish. Therefore, you need to manipulate emotions, because you can say a certain word in a certain way and people are laughing. You say the same word with a different intent. Someone might hate you because of that. Someone might start to cry because of that. Because it's the intention, it's the energy behind the word and the expression, of course, of the physical body, how you deliver a message. How you are perceived by someone else. And they absolutely know what they are doing. They know that they are hurting people. They know that they are trying to completely diminish their light. Just like this system that controls everything and wants to make sure that people do not accomplish and even realize their own potential. They do not even allow 5% of their own potential to be manifested in the physical world. Because otherwise the system would easily crumble into pieces very, very quickly. A narcissistic parent makes sure that their child never realizes its potential. Another example of how, for example, the mask might crack over time, because for the sociopath, they have no emotional control, nothing. They explode in public. There could be police around, there could be a president of a country around. It doesn't matter. Because they cannot care. They cannot care. That's the thing. It's not like that they want to, they have no emotional intelligence. This is a 4-year-old child trapped in an older body. The narcissist might be a 6-year-old child, so 2 years older, so there's a little bit of understanding of mimicry. That's why they can, for example, blend in a little bit better. But over time, it's getting exposed sooner or later anyway. So it's the emotional guilt tripping. It's all the time saying you can't do certain things. It's all the time belittling you, especially in public. Making sure that you suffer emotionally, because through emotional oppressing, you have power over someone. If they, for example, haven't realized their own potential, their own worth, their own strength. That's why so much emphasis I put on every video that you need to know who you are. It is the greatest strength to know who you are. So you can walk on your own legs, not being basically like a paper in the wind, blown left and right by the opinions of other people around you. You can defend yourself, your own stance, your own opinions against your own parents, for example. This is a crucial thing to understand. So how might they, for example, unmask themselves? Because they see everything that they do as a great accomplishment. You might be, for example, in this scenario, we, for example, have a father and a young man sitting in a car. They're driving to the gym, they're driving to grocery stores, whatnot. They are talking about eating leftovers. The father all the time has to eat the leftovers after a birthday party, after an event, because the daughter and the mother are not interested in doing so. That's all cool. Suddenly the topic changes. The daughter is emotionally stunned at the age of 12 to 13, 14. Out of nowhere. First, you are thinking like, what the fuck's going on? Second, why are you saying that with a grin on your face as you have accomplished something extraordinary in life? That your own daughter, in this scenario, is stunned emotionally, so cannot make her own choices in life. Because people who are emotionally oppressed all the time, even though when you tell it them, consciously they know that they have been mistreated by their parents. But they all the time still seek the validation of love that they have never received in their past. And the narcissist absolutely knows about that and will absolutely use that to his advantage. Another scenario might be very well You are in public. You have your own audience. You are performing in front of your own audience. Huh? You are a speaker. You are a very great speaker. You can speak and speak for hours on end, quite easily. In this scenario, a narcissistic father will use that opportunity when, for example, he comes to stage to make it possible that all the attention goes to him and eventually even belittle the one, his own child, in this scenario, a son, against him. Doesn't matter if there's many people around. It's all the attention on him, because that's what they seek, that's what they want. If they are intelligent, though, for example, have been told by the mother, shut up, and basically just contribute to that success of son, well, someone like that would behave differently, because they're a little bit smarter and not 6 years old, maybe 8 years old. Huh? So a little bit more of mimicry, a little bit more in understanding of surroundings, and then acting accordingly in that distorted reality that they have, because they think they are the best. They should have been performing there, not their son, not his son, in this scenario. Narcissists and sociopaths are both heavily on control, and if they do not get that control, they will destroy their own family. Unlike a psychopath views society as nothing. This is crazy, bullshit, idiotic thinking of that current society they are living in. They will protect their family, unlike sociopath and narcissists. They could crush everyone around them through, for example, war. Young men are dying left and right. They might be, for example, a general. So once again, the young men are dying through certain orders, left and right. Territory has been lost, whatnot. They're eating steak and having a great time. And there's been movies made about that topic. So, for example, don't allow yourself to be drafted into war. You're basically fighting bullshittery because of old people not agreeing with each other. Yeah? It's like chess. The items on a chessboard, white and black, hate each other greatly. The ones playing, though, they might be best friends. So even though old men are disagreeing with each other through different nations, they still somehow have respect for each other and are meeting with each other. And in today's world, where everything is not so much about what a president might be saying, because after all, this is just an official puppet. Corporations have to say. They dictate everything. They might hate each other on the outside. On the inside, they're best friends, shaking hands with each other on a daily basis, knowing very well that the decisions that they do, that, for example, happened in the last few years, will destroy the lives of hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. And they will perfectly be able to sleep all day long, all the time, week after week, year after year, until they are finally being held accountable and therefore executed. That's what psychopaths are. Psychopaths are easily able to influence masses, large numbers of people with ease. Yeah? And I know that from personal experience, because back in school time, I was sitting next to one. I just dared, basically, to sit somewhere else during 7th grade. And this idiot exploded. Because all the time those young students, young pupils were asking me, hey, Roy, do you sit next to me next year? Hey, Roy, do you come to breakfast time, during breakfast time, here under the stairs, because we want to play a little bit of poker and whatnot. So my attention not focused on him. And I've explained in a few other videos a little bit about that, in which this psychopath was able to turn everyone against me. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone, the entire school, from the most liked to the most hated. Huh? The most hated guy, because there was immense hatred boiling up in that idiot. School emergency meetings, parents coming into school, not my parents, but other parents, and whatnot. So it's a very clear sign to what these people are capable of, because they are studying their environment. They see people as prey that needs to be studied, needs to be taken advantage of, in order for them to fulfill their own goals. In this scenario, because I've also mentioned in the beginning black magic and how it's being used in society to make things happen so that large people are not able to see through certain illusions. Black magic is also being used in family dynamics, where, for example, children are already born from the get-go into these families. From a higher standpoint, their mission might be, for example, that they break out of these family structures and use this knowledge that they learned from an early age on to use for the better for society. To make reality a better place. It's not just those who are born into these families, it's also those who later on, because of these family dynamics, are being brought into certain organizations, certain cults, where they also learn certain things. And black magic, they're heavily being used in order to influence them, in order to change their perception of reality, to even change their personality. Just like that. Because, once again, magic is being done on a regular basis in order to achieve a certain outcome. So it's not just manipulation through words. Words are the greatest tool of energy. For example, if you watch Harry Potter, what Dumbledore mentioned. Words alone hold incredible power. Your intention makes sure that you get a reaction out of someone. You can say a word in a positive way. You can say the same word or the same line in a negative one. What might be, for example, black magic doing to someone on a regular basis? In this scenario, we have a sociopathic mother and a narcissistic father doing magic on their own child throughout early age already. The kid eventually meets someone from a different town, different state, different country, maybe even a different continent. Because after all, in today's time, long distance relationships are no longer like this extraordinary thing. It's more and more common because of technology, once again. Families who have that type of knowledge, occult knowledge, occult simply meaning hidden knowledge that the broader audience has no clue about, might be delving heavily, for example, into astrology, into the tarot. There's a reason why these two are peaking throughout the years heavily. Because as I've mentioned in my videos, the Earth, after all, is going into the 5th, 6th dimension, which means that higher knowledge is brought down to a wider audience to understand. So there's a reason why more and more people are attracted to astrology, to the tarot, and not so much anymore to science, because it has been clearly seen that science is dictated by the ones who pay for it, by the ones who have a certain agenda and want to have a certain outcome in society. So money dictates everything. These family structures, for example, might know that their child has great potential. Their child might have to meet someone from a different place in order to fulfill something, in order to fulfill, for example, to create a company, to fulfill a destiny, to change the planet for the better, whatever it is. They already know that, while the child itself is just 3 years old. Since they know stuff like that, or they get to that knowledge later on in life, and they are being sociopathic, narcissistic, psychopathic, where everything is about control, everything is about them, how dare their own child have that future? How dare someone else have that future with their child? Now their child is suddenly a belonging. It's not about them. They're after all that small. And they didn't want to listen. They didn't want to learn throughout life. Therefore having heavy consequences to pay in that time frame. So they, for example, know that certain people have certain goals to fulfill in life. After all, the physical world is not so much important than the one that no one can see, the energetic world. This is way more important. Manifestation and stuff like that only works because you have certain intentions that are made already in the other world, manifest over time into the physical world. This is the only way stuff like that works. So you have intentions, you stick to them, you all the time think about them, you do them in the physical world, and at one point they happen to materialize themselves, to be seen, to be experienced, to be lived out through, So in these family dynamics, they already know, someone else is coming over, or someone else will do something with their child. It's not about them. They're basically insignificant. What is their life compared to that life? Nothing. Every life in itself is precious. This is very important to understand, but these people do not work properly up here in the mind. After all, I can say it many, many times in a row. It's about them. Everything is about them. They need to keep on a mask that they know everything, that they're great. Stuff like that. It's all the time important. So it's important and crucial to understand that for such people, and I don't know how often I have to say it because it's very important to understand it. Maybe by saying it 6, 7, 8, 9 times, people fully understand it. Those who do not work properly in the mind, everything in life is about control, that control grip. They want to expand that control over someone else. Since they already have control over that child, they want to have control over the significant other as well. And if that individual has high standards, routines, habits that absolutely do not allow to be manipulated by someone else, this is a major threat to these people. By just standing still, being still, walking in truth, speaking the truth, you would expose these people over time. You would expose how little they actually really know about life, how little of common knowledge they actually have, how not so much of a great parent they are, because after all you would see the other side of how parents could be. The child could wake up over time, the control grip gone, simply by experiencing other people, simply by being put out of place of that one environment where they have a heavy control grip, where they make sure that the child is not even being able to think for himself, herself. They want that control that other person doesn't allow to be controlled. That other person might actually see through them quite easily. That other person sooner or later would expose them. Since there is no control, what's going to happen? They're going to influence their own child to go against the other one, to put doubt in their own child, to maybe neglect that relationship. It's not a good thing. Because after all, throughout time, and especially if you were to take that child out of that control grip by moving somewhere else, just normal energy alone would fade away. Just normal energy alone would expose how bad of a life they had with their own parents compared to what they are able to experience now. That's why these people are a major threat to control freaks. Control freaks not necessarily have to expose them. As I've mentioned, just walk in truth, say what you mean and mean what you say. Your own actions actually tell throughout time who you are. And control freaks all the time compare their own life to someone else's life, because they need to be able to control everything. They need to take advantage over other people. This is a crucial aspect for these people. The peoples of the peoples. Because they can't live without that control. They would immediately fall down to the conscience of that little child that got hurt maybe 30, 50 years ago. Painful. Once again, people do not want to put emphasis on the inside. Hurts. It hurts to acknowledge that you have done miserable in life. It hurts to acknowledge that you got taken advantage of, be it people around them or a system, just like a few years ago. This is heavy pain, heavy shame. People don't want to do that work. Rather occupying themselves 24/7 with other people, drugs, or any kind of means just to not being able to think about it. So they use word magic. Subtle things over months and years to put incredible doubt in such a relationship. However you've met, I don't know. However these people, for example, have met in that scenario. Because the other one could expose the entire family dynamic. That it's all about control. There's no love. This is all about control. And the supposed love quickly fades away if you don't fall in line. In this scenario now, we continue. The two might argue sometimes because of the doubt and everything put in place by the parents, but still somehow all the time come together because there's an important mission to fulfill. The mission, of course, can be also fulfilled alone, but there is a mission after all because, for example, these parents have used divination tools to look into someone's destiny, in their own child. Most parents are very, very interested in their own child's destiny. You cannot tell me that if you never heard about stuff like that you yourself wouldn't do it. So they've paid certain things. They want to break that relationship apart. Because, once again, the fear of being exposed over time. They might realize that their child and the significant other are doing certain things at a certain time. They're, for example, FaceTiming, they're playing computer games, they're meeting maybe every Friday at the cinema. They realize that during those times, on that day, those two are together. So over time, they would simply say, we want you to do something else. Please go to the store, buy something, because we have forgotten it. And they will be purposefully doing it all the time. I've read once a Reddit post of a woman in France who realized years later that her own parents made sure that she would be constantly walking into someone that the parents have paid to interact with her, to flirt with her. Payment after payment after payment to do those things. The quality of that clown is not important because the end goal is simply that those two, for example, have sex, make a child, and if the other one, the significant other, be it man or woman, has standards, they probably drop the relationship because after all this is cheating, right? So payment has been done in that unfortunate tragic post for that woman. I don't know if there was magic also involved, black magic. I will be going into details about why certain things happened for the planet that people were not able to see through it in other videos specifically. This video is only about magic being done in family dynamics, where children are born, for example, in satanic families already to begin with, or they later on join certain cults that promise them money, fame, status, and whatnot. Usually that 3D crap. At a price, you know. So what could, for example, be done to take those two apart? You could collect hair of your child. You could use certain items like socks, slips, whatnot, and put them together in a jar with the same items, the same hair of the one that you're, for example, paying, or making sure that she runs into, or he runs into. That's not such an uncommon thing in countries where, for example, certain secret organizations are hiding. Like people already know, for example, in Italy, in Spain, in the United States, in Romania, China, and whatnot. I necessarily do not want to name them right now. I will be doing that in these other videos specifically, because these clowns need to be put to rest finally, for once and all, for what they're doing to humanity. So you put things together in a glass, in a jar, for example. You light candles, you chant certain words all the time, especially during full moon nights, because that's where most rituals happen to be, around 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and full moon. They're all the time done. Maybe in this scenario, the parents don't know how to do these things themselves, so they go to someone and pay them. And maybe eventually later on pay how to be taught that way, so they can do it themselves. And sooner or later, that individual, their own child, will change in personality, will completely abandon that relationship, even though everyone has free will, right? But for example, throughout being crushed early on in childhood, people like that usually do not have self-confidence. They do not have high self-esteem. They can't speak. They can't make their own choices. They have been heavily emotionally oppressed. And people like that usually also do not love themselves. So if someone doesn't love themselves, if someone cannot choose themselves, they cannot make their own stance, how can such people choose someone else? How can they love someone else if they do not love themselves? It's an impossibility. They look all the time through external validation. They basically want to have someone that makes them feel whole, someone else, instead of you yourself making yourself whole. That will never work. Because you are like a bottomless pit. Whatever you give out to such a human, it will never be enough. It will never feel like, for example, real love, because there's something missing. And because there's doubt put into your ears all the time. And there's magic being done all the time. And the quality of that guy or that girl is not important. They could sleep around, they could be a cheat themselves as low life scumfuck. The end goal is very clear, because even if for example a child were to be made, that low life individual can be controlled by the parent. First and foremost because they're already paying them to make sure that they bump into their own kid all the time. Therefore, if this is a loser, it doesn't matter. They would rather have, such people would rather have their own child live a miserable life until the end of time, to be with a loser, than to be with someone who has the qualities, mindset, skill set, for example, of a millionaire. Because the millionaire has standards. The millionaire sooner or later will be self-made. The millionaire will be financially free. The millionaire will never allow to be talked in a certain way, to be treated in a certain way, the standards protect you from low quality outcomes in life, once again. That's why I put so much emphasis. You need to know who you are. This is crucial. Without knowing who you are, different people outside of you can take advantage of you, and you're not even realizing that. People are going to realize that years later, because no magic is permanent. Sooner or later, the energy is going to fade away, especially after the goal has been accomplished. The ritual doesn't have to be done anymore. Week after week, month after month, year after year. Because there's already a child. There's already cheating going on heavily. They are already neglecting someone else. The outcome is clear. The relationship is over. Don't have to do this anymore. They don't have to do magic anymore. It fades away. And the individual, their own child, eventually wakes up, realizing with whom they are interacting all the time. Might find out that the one that they are sleeping around is cheating on them as well. Because once again, the quality doesn't matter. The end goal was only to break that apart. Because for mentally ill people, control is everything. Their own child having a great destiny, who cares? It's not them. It's not this mentally fucked up parent that can experience that kind of richness, that kind of possibilities, opportunities, status, fame, aura, knowledge, wisdom. Basically everything better in life. They can't. They are too weak. They are in low frequency. Low frequency people are the most idiotic in life that you can encounter. Something happens. Their needs weren't met. You might kill someone else. Someone cheated on them. You might kill someone immediately. There's no thinking capacity of just analyzing what's going on. Because they have no emotional control to begin with. So those are actually very, very dangerous people. Especially if you delve in black magic. Satanic families, for example, that hide behind religion. There's many families who hide behind religion. What all has been done in the name of God in human history? Don't you think there wasn't magic used? They all the time show in movies and computer games black magic. What can be done through magic? Complete brainwashing. It's not just that you need physical tools like MK Ultra, electroshocking, and whatnot that you see, for example, so many celebrities with the dark eyes. People wondering what's that all about. It's also magic. Magic can do a lot of things. There's white magic, black magic. Magic are words. Magic are habits. Magic is what you think and do. Magic is the intention behind words. Magic is the intention behind an interaction with someone or something. Yeah? Lighting up a candle. Saying certain things in a certain way at a certain time to have a certain outcome. This is magic if done repeatedly. You put focus and attention on something, so it has to have an effect sooner or later. Low vibrational stuff can only stick to low vibrational people. Therefore, if you are in high frequency, it cannot reach you. Certain things might have a short impact, but the damage done to the one sending it will be tremendous. This is just like someone is punching, briefly, another person like that, but they themselves, they will be hit by a car for messing with the wrong people. There are idiots who absolutely do not understand these topics, and the general population is simply laughing about stuff like that. For a very reason, they are purposefully held stupid. I've explained that many times as well. Because at one point everyone knew about things like that. Everyone was an astrologist. Everyone was being able to read cards. Everyone was very intuitive. People who do not have high intuition, they need to rely on tools. These tools are then physical objects that you can see with your own eyes if, for example, certain things have been accomplished. And because everyone would be able to do that, this system would easily crumble quickly. A politician announces some nonsense. Imagine 18 million people immediately pulling cards, immediately calculating. So they do a chart, not necessarily a birth chart, but they create a chart and then they see and realize, okay, this is going on. Those planets' energies are right now greatly affecting the Earth. Like Neptune, for example, all about illusion, confusion, misunderstandings, not knowing what to do. That was very present in 2020. People had no idea what was going on. People didn't know what to do, what to believe in. One side mentioned something else, another side mentioned the truth. Confusion, mass hypnosis, everything present. Success for the system, basically. Another reason also why, for example, planes are not allowed to fly over certain places. Because they held those rituals there. They know certain points on the planet where the energy is, for example, very thin around a certain time, and they don't want, of course, anyone to witness that, what they're doing there. Therefore, certain planes are not allowed to fly over certain areas. It's not just this one theory that everyone is talking around, flat, round. There's many reasons to that. And knowledge and the rightful usage of that means incredible power and responsibility. And the ones on top know that very well. They don't want that knowledge to be out. There's a reason why they need you and everyone else to be stupid. Stupid people are easy to control. Stupid people are easy to be held in check. Put a few scenarios out into the world through media, and they will panic because they are trained in a certain way. Also by playing computer games. People already anticipate certain things already by playing that computer game. How to interact with certain people if, for example, resources are very low. Social experiments. Rather shoot the other one in that game than to ask questions because you might be shot as well. Magic is like propaganda in a way. It needs to be done repeatedly in order to override the truth. Because propaganda, I've made a video about that as well, heavily focuses on the aspect of overriding by highlighting abstruse nonsense. It absolutely doesn't make sense, and everyone knows that it doesn't make sense, but it's going to be repeated again and again and again until the last person believes in it. There were, for example, TV shows all about social engineering. There's, for example, 6 people sitting in a waiting room. 5 of them are suddenly standing up. And there's immense pressure now on the one not standing up, because the attention is all on them. They're standing up and watching this person. What is that individual going to do? Almost everyone stood up as well. Or the elevator example. 3 people are in an elevator. Instead of facing one direction, they turn around, those 2, and face the one standing in front of them. What have most people done? They turned around as well, because 4 eyes were watching them. Immense pressure, basically waiting for that individual to finally turn around We look at you. Why are you not turning around? Immense pressure, attention on them. And people cannot handle conflict. People don't like to say no because they've been trained to say no, to not say no. At an early age, when you are allowed to go to the restroom, if you're allowed to say something, or not, if you have to shut up or not. So it's crucial to understand. I've already mentioned black magic, something that most people absolutely do not believe in. That's actually one of the many reasons why there's so much death going on. Yeah? Why certain people suddenly out of nowhere got a heart attack, why they suddenly had a car accident, even though by normal circumstances nothing would have happened. Why people, for example, say that they are sane, everything is alright, they are not suicidal, yet they still die somehow in the end. Because that's, for example, normal people that have no knowledge about stuff like that. They have no protection. They don't know how to handle energy. They cannot transmute energy. They are easy prey because they got to knowledge, to forbidden knowledge, occultic knowledge that they shouldn't have to begin with. They got to it somehow, and there are organizations around that absolutely want to make sure that stuff like that stays hidden. You may laugh about it. I mean, it's your free will. Everything is about free will. I've mentioned that as well. And they rely on you fully believing that this is idiocy, bullshittery, nonsense. How can someone above the age of 18, after school, after university, after work, believe in something like that? They themselves are heavily doing that. But they don't want the population to believe in it. Because if the population doesn't believe in it, they themselves are no threat. They have no power. They are easy prey. Easy to be controlled by physical means and energetic means. The energy is very potent, and people know about that. Entities know about that. Someone like myself, I don't have to say these things. The power dynamic is very clear on this topic. So I don't have to fear them. I don't have to worry about them at all. Because I know who I am. It is crucial to understand once more the impact that you have on the world if you fully know who you are and if you walk in truth. The system knows very well of almost every human being on this planet. They have their birth dates, their locations, heavy information gathered throughout time, collected. People know about that stuff already because that data is being sold all the time. That data is being harvested, collected, and eventually used to, for example, oppress someone. People who are not important don't have to worry about anything. Everything will be collected, but they don't have to worry about anything. Those who dare to be a threat to the system, that might be a different thing. But if you have protection, you know who you are, there's nothing to worry about. Zero. And they know it themselves. They can only rely on low level people, low frequency people. Those who all the time worry about money, they worry about the future, they worry about their own health, the safety. That's what they can rely on. Low frequency people, people who are in depression, people who have anxiety, people who have fear of the fear, people who fear the unknown, people who fear for their lives. Why do you think there's a reason why they show in TV, on the news? You might be in London eating pizza right now. On the news they tell you that the bridge in India collapsed and 12 people died. Yes, it's a tragic event. But what the fuck has that anything to do with you? And that I've also mentioned. The fear of death should be all the time somewhere in the back of your mind. Because through fear, they control hundreds of millions, if not billions of people with quite ease. Even though that fear is not justified, it's nonsense. Even though they might not even do what they say. Huh? The constant fear of war, the constant fear of money disappearing, the constant fear of crushing people through money, the middle class completely being crushed at one point. They might not even go through it fully, but it's the fear nonetheless. And through fear, people freeze. Because they've never learned to deal with that kind of stress, with that kind of notion, with that kind of thinking process. This is a difficult subject. That's why also people laugh about heavy topics in order to protect their own reality. In their own reality, they already know that they are, for example, insignificant by their own choices taken in life, not because I say it. They know it very well. They act like that all the time, year after year. They speak negatively about themselves. They cannot speak positively about themselves because it might sound ridiculous. They are not happy with themselves, their skill set, their knowledge. They haven't achieved anything great in life, according to their own perception. The system needs people like that. The system needs people who do not question anything. That's easy prey. People who speak the truth are a major threat. Because they disrupt everything. They make it possible for a single second to occur that someone else might start to think. Just like the slogan that I have for my channels, bringing unconscious elements to the surface so people have a second chance to observe and fix them. This is just a chance I'm giving you, huh? Not a guarantee. You, after all, do not care about me, the same like myself. Yeah? I can provide the knowledge, I can provide information, I can be there for you. But the healing aspects, you have to do on your own. I cannot heal you, you have to heal yourself. If you do not love yourself, you cannot love someone else, because you will be constantly thinking and suspecting them of doing things that they might not even be thinking about. They're actually even incapable of thinking like that. But since someone else has made such experiences and is surrounded by people who also think like that, low frequency, misery loves company after all. Everyone experienced that bullshit. Everyone experienced negative parents. Everyone experienced negative outcomes in society. Almost everyone experienced cheating. Almost everyone experienced gossip. So if everyone is like that, that individual has to be like that as well. There is no chance that they are very different. It cannot be, actually. An impossibility in the unknown. Very well, it could be that someone is like that. Very well, it can be that someone is like that. And by being like that, you expose all of your surroundings with great ease. You expose your own parents, you expose your friends, you expose society, and people who haven't done the inner work, and therefore they greatly envy you, hate you, and will try to stop you wherever they can, with whatever tools they have. Emotional control, doubt, abusing certain relationship dynamics, not handing certain opportunities and possibilities because they would greatly know if they had that money, if they had that fame, if they had that skill set, they would succeed and leave them in the dust. Rightfully so, for such behavior, for such parenting. This is a joke. Just like the system, this is a joke. And people don't understand it. This is a major joke. This is a spiritual war, after all, that manifests itself in the physical. Everything starts in the unseen first. Then you can see the effect it has in this world. Since people do not believe that there are higher dimensions, they can be abused and misused quite easily. People may say they believe in God. They hide behind religion. What kind of God are they actually serving? That's the question. Because someone can say, yeah, they believe in God. Which God? The good or the bad? Is a major thing. This is a major topic, after all, that will be split in many, many different videos where I will explicitly talk about certain organizations, certain techniques that they are using, just like I've explained the option with the jar and the chanting and the candle lighting and paying someone else and all the time looking through or abusing divination tools like astrology and the tarot in order for them to manifest an outcome that they already anticipate greatly, a negative one, since they are mentally unstable, mentally insane actually. They don't care about their own family, about their own children, because those are just tools to achieve something that they anticipate in the future. That's all that there is to it. And that they themselves can abuse those people around to manifest success and a good lifestyle, which sooner or later is going to be taken away anyway, called karma. So I hope that information like that helps those that are, for example, born from the get-go in these families and absolutely do not have anyone to talk to. They might do some Reddit post, anonymous, because there's no one to talk to. No one has that kind of knowledge. No one that they can rely on. No one that they can trust, for example, to be given good advice for the future. They're helpless. They are looking all around and have no one to talk to. Because if they dare to speak to someone in that circle, usually when people break out of those organizations, those family covens and cults and all this bullshit, they will be shamed and mocked and eventually some even hunted, because they have done certain, they have promised certain things. They have said certain things under an awe, All of these things can be broken. All of these things can be undone quite easily, actually. The change needs to happen from the heart, from the absolute inside of a person, the core energy of an individual. And that is a major thing to accomplish, because as I've said in my videos earlier, the very early videos, it requires huge amounts of willpower, effort, and dedication to change your core energy. It can be done. But it requires your determination, you wanting to change for the good, you stopping to believe that you're unworthy of whatever, unworthy of success, unworthy of good friends, unworthy of love, unworthy to be seen in a better light in the future by other people. All can be done, but it needs to start from the heart, without asking anything in return. This is a process that might take place for 15 years. The actual change might already happen a year later, but the process of you for yourself or these people that are in these families to fully, honestly, truly feel it in their bones to have taken place might take 15 years. The actual change and positive effects already be seen a year later. True dedication, true determination, a year later. But this full acceptance might take 15 years, might take 5 years just. Rather be someone who puts in the effort, wanting to escape this nonsense, wanting to use that knowledge. It's just occult knowledge, it's not necessarily bad. use it for the good, to make a good impact on the world, change that everyone basically desires to see happening in this physical reality, after all. It's a necessary step for personal development. You just heard what I say? Everything can be done, because after all, this is a universe of endless potential. Everything can be done. You just have to believe in yourself, that you do it for the good, and that you do not harm other people. And it's going to manifest sooner or later. Have the courage to be yourself.